Welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast with your host, Brett Bovin. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy the show.
What is up, everyone, and welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast, the electronic campfire, as I like to call here. It's your host, Brett Bovin, and this is the show for all hunters and outdoorsmen where we all get together, share stories, learn new strategies. So welcome to the show. Today we have on the show with me and our guest, Jearred. We'll get to him here in a second. But for those of you that are unfamiliar with the show, we do a live show Tuesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our YouTube page. We did it on Facebook before, but because I don't like them anymore, so I basically gave them the middle finger, so we only do it on YouTube. Anyways, each week we cover a new state. This week we are in Nevada, and we're excited to learn. I was talking to the guest off air, and some mind-boggling things, man. So I can't wait to dive into that a little bit here more. But anyways, if you have any questions during the show, feel free to drop them in the comments, or any whatever comments during the show. Feel free to drop them in the comments, and we'll pop them up during the screen. We're also going to be trying a call-in line. So if you want to call the number of 269-993-3653 and ask us directly a question over the phone, feel free to do that. If you ever want to be a guest on the show as well, feel free to send me a message on any of our social media platforms, or you can send me an email at brettbovin@whitetailadvantage.com. We do also have a saying on the show, put your quarter in the slot machine. And what do I simply mean by that is just to help share the show. I strongly believe hunting is a dying sport, a dying lifestyle. And like I said, on this show, we say what we want, how we feel. We don't care about political correctness or cancel culture. I don't give a shit about that. So all I ask out there is for everyone else, share the show, helps get one new friend. That's all I ask. A little quick housekeeping notes. If you use the code GP10, GP10 to get 10% discount off Ghillie Puck products. Also, make sure to check out MAGNUS BROADHEADS and Grizz Media. Now, enough with that boring media intro, boring crap that I feel like I just want to just fall asleep saying it myself, honestly. So let's get into the meat of the show tonight. So like I said, tonight it's Tuesday, July 16th. It's episode 88, and we're in Nevada. And like I said, I was talking to the guest off air, and I'm very curious to learn a little bit more about his tactics out there and what it's like to hunt out in Nevada as well. So let's just say this. If you were to ask me to rank states that I wanted to go hunt in from first to bottom, I told him Nevada's at the bottom. So I'm really curious to see. He's saying it's the number one, but we'll let him explain. I'm not the best, obviously. So enough of me jibber jabbering. Let's get in tonight. All right, let's get in, Jearred. What's up, brother?
What's going on, Brett?
Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the invite.
Well, for anyone that doesn't know you, can you give a little background about yourself?
Yeah, you bet. My name's Jearred Foruria. I'm born and raised out west. Grew up in Idaho. Joined the service right out of high school. Did 12 years active duty Coast Guard. Was fortunate to spend 6 beautiful years in Northwest Michigan. Really fell in love with the state of Michigan. Both my kids were born there. Since I've kind of just traveled around. My wife and I have been married over 20 years. We've lived in 7 states, so I've had a lot of exposure, to hunting North America, certainly. And so we're settled now in Nevada, as you've described, and been here about 8 years, and we just love it. So,
what part of Michigan were you based out of?
I was stationed in Ludington and Manistee, both up in Northwest Michigan. And so I did a lot of public land hunting, which is much different than it is out here. Some of the same tactics for sure. It was great. I really did love the state. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's a beautiful state. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
My personal opinions about how things are ran here is dog crap. So
yeah.
I'm sure I'm not the only one to say that or first one to hear that. But
yeah.
Anyways, I don't know if you want to talk about your past career though out in Oregon.
Yeah, sure. So I did, like I said, about 12 years active duty Coast Guard. And then I got out of the Coast Guard and went to work for the Bureau of Land Management. For those who may not know, there's not a lot of Bureau of Land Management public lands out east or in the Midwest. BLM manages the largest amount of acreage of our public lands in the United States. Worked in the as a federal law enforcement ranger for the BLM in Oregon, Northwest Oregon, patrolling our public lands, ensuring that I was the guy that made sure that our natural resources were protected. Very similar in concept to DNR or a Fish and Wildlife officer, except really thinking about the landscape and how us users of public lands use that landscape. Because like wildlife, the trees don't have a voice either. So yeah, that's what I did.
Well, first off, thanks for your service, man. I greatly appreciate it. I gotta ask though, Oregon's my favorite football team. So
I'm a Boise State guy.
You're what?
I'm a Boise State guy, man. I'm from Idaho.
I cheer for Boise State. I like that team. It's a great program back when what's his name? I'm drawing a blank.
Kellen Moore.
No, well, yeah, when he was there, but the coach, Chris Peterson, I think
Chris
was.
Pete, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I love that coach. He had balls on him, man. He didn't care. He just threw. I mean, he was smart with it. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I love that coach. I love the field. Obviously, that's iconic, and man, yeah. Anyways, so what was it like transitioning from the Coast Guard into working in like law enforcement capacity out there in Oregon?
That's a really good question, Brett. It was different than I thought it was going to be. When you're in the service, and it really doesn't matter what branch of the service you're in, you build such a level of camaraderie with the people that you're with all the time, your platoon, your team, your company, whatever. And I had that. I mean, 12 years I spent a lot of time with my comrades, my shipmates. And then when I transitioned into the law enforcement regime, I was by myself. I was the only one, patrolling pretty much the entire Northwest Oregon sector, millions of acres of our public lands. And it was just me. And that took a little bit of adjustment, until you start to build relationships with county deputies and state patrol and fish and game officers and, DNR. It was a little bit of a challenge at first, but it was also incredibly peaceful because it was just me too. Right. So a lot of great experiences, met some incredible people out there, mostly hunters, recreationists. But hunting season's a big deal out west, like it is in most places from a cultural perspective. And so I got to deal with generations of hunters that have been hunting the same, mountain ridge since they can remember, and stuff like that. I mean, that's what was really cool about the job.
I remember when I was in the police academy, I think it was the second month in, they start preparing you for like interviews and stuff like that. And they start telling you, all right, in 2 weeks or so, we're going to have like this, I don't know, meeting, whatever, that they're going to bring in a bunch of departments in. And they asked like, is there any specific department that you guys would like us to invite? I was already employed with my current employer, but I asked if they can bring in the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Conservation Officer. They said, oh, really? I was the first person to ask that question, if they could bring one of them in so I can kind of like talk to them and stuff like that. And I really wanted to become a game warden growing up as a kid. Honestly, didn't go that route, but the main reason why I didn't go towards it was because I just didn't want to give up my hunting seasons, really. And come to find out, though, talking to a lot of the CEOs in the area when I was working in the field, you basically make up your own hours. Right. So like they said that you can work like 5A to 5P and do like 10-hour shifts and you're golden. Like you said, they make up their own hours. It was like, fuck, man, I wish I knew that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it was good. I had a ton of flexibility. I had really good leadership, and I said, I really enjoyed the job. And the nice thing about being federal versus, like in your case, Brett, working, in the city or a county or even for the state, as a federal guy, I got to work in almost every other Western state too. I spent a lot of time in Glamis and Southern California at the dunes, and that was cool to get a lot of exposure to different people and culture. And, what everybody loves to do. And when you think about recreating on our public lands. And so that was pretty cool. I enjoyed that.
What made you want to leave, if you don't mind me asking the question?
Yeah, no problem. Well, a couple things. One, I kind of got tired of moving around. I think our political climate changed drastically, and it just wasn't a place as a father and a husband I wanted to be long term. Even though if Jearred was single, I probably would still be doing it. But as a dad and husband, and I just kind of had this epiphany of what's best for our family, and that's ultimately why I left and stayed with the BLM for a while, actually until about a year ago. I work in the financial services industry now, but it was a hard decision, certainly, because you work so hard, as you know, similar to boot camp. When you go to the academy, I was in Glencoe, and it's a huge effort, a lot of work, and it's kind of tough to give that badge up after you've earned it.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, when I officially call it quits, I broke down in tears, man. It was a hard decision to make. Just talking about in that world, and it was tough to do that, but I knew it was the best decision for myself, mentally, physically, and for my family. And my official time frame for my certification is going to end next March, so it's going to be a very emotional month for myself, because like I said, that was something I was training my whole life for, and for it to end the way it ended, it's a sad thing, but I'm happier where I'm at now. I'm just, that part of me still, I feel like there's a dog in me, though. Like,
I get it.
You never want it. It's always wanting to feed and fight and stuff like that. But you just got to put that dog down inside you somehow.
Yeah.
And that's part of me why wants to move to Tennessee, because I live in Michigan. It's a very blue state, liberal democratic state. And obviously I'm not scared about my teachings of my own kids, but I want to move to where more correct, I don't want to say correct thinking, but like-minded Christian type families, and Tennessee is the state that I want to move to, because that's where my wife's from, and they just offer everything that I'm looking for, and the camaraderie, and everyone down there in Tennessee. I don't know if you've ever been there, but Tennessee, I swear, we went down there the very first time for a honeymoon. I'm meeting people and they're like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And they're telling me like their life story, and they're just the nicest, amazing people in the world, man.
I love it.
Anyways, all right. Can I ask you, what are your personal hunting tactics and strategies? What are you, bow, private, public, gun?
I primarily am a bow hunter. I have started to dabble the last couple of years in, getting heavy and reloading and long range shooting. I had a really good rifle builder here in Nevada, Ace Rifles, build me a Tika Action 6.5 PRC. So I would say I'm an opportunistic hunter in terms of what tags I can get. I apply for multiple states every year out west, and but my roots, I love to bow hunt. That's my passion.
Yeah, I'm a huge bow hunter. Everyone that knows me on the show here, I'll never pick up a gun. I'll never do that. The day I can't draw back a bow is, I'm sad to say it, I'll get a crossbow. I have my own opinions about it, but we'll just put a pin in that for now. But yeah. So what type of gear are you running for your bow?
I shoot a Hoyt RX7 Ultra. I shoot a pretty heavy arrow, 550 grain victories. Let's see, I'm shooting a Tommy Hog slider. Shoots good. I love shooting it.
What type of broadheads you got?
I flip around quite a bit. I like to test new products, and I think I've tried about them all, but I always go back to a couple. I love the MAGNUS Stingers, and the Wacom 4-blade are probably my two go-to heads. I'm not a mechanical guy. I used them when I lived in Michigan, and they worked fantastic. I've always pulled 70, 75 pounds, give or take, on the bow. I've always had more than enough velocity and kinetic energy to punch through, especially a whitetail with a mechanical head. But when you come out west, and I know a lot of people hunt with them, but if you've ever broke down a bull elk or a moose or something like that, it doesn't sit well with me. I want a little bit extra penetration, that cut on contact head. to really drive. I want to try to get through both sides if I can. And believe it or not, on an elk, it's not that hard to do if you got the right setup. In particular, if you don't hit a shoulder blade, right? I think I've killed 13 elk with a bow, and all but one I didn't get a full pass through.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. See, do you see up in the top left corner of the studio there?
Mm-hmm.
It says Magnus. Yeah, that's the #1 broadhead right there, buddy. Yeah. To hear you say Magnus. Yeah. Everyone shoots their own broadheads. Everyone's got their own different setup, but I love Magnus. They just pack a punch.
They do.
And I just love them. And this year I use the Stingers, the 4-blade, the serrated ones. This year I'm gonna be actually doing the 4-bladed serrated Razor ones. This is gonna be my first year trying those ones out.
Nice. Yeah, they've always treated me well. They punch through, and that's what I want. I want to go all the way through. I want as much blood coming out of that animal for a good proper blood trail for tracking as I can possibly get. That's done me well. Yeah.
And they pierce through some bone.
Oh yeah.
Like it's nothing. Like it's just going through cloud basically.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, I have a Matthews Phase 4. It's gonna be my first year using it, and obviously Magnus. I got the no one tell my wife this. It's a secret between us and the guys watching the show here. I got the UV slider for the sight.
Oh no, you didn't.
I did. She doesn't know it just yet. She thinks I'm running last year's sight.
It does look good, I'll tell you that.
It's nice, but as soon as I got it, I started seeing more about the dialed archery sights, and I'm not saying I would have switched to that one, knowing at the time, because I did all my research into the UV slider, and for me it looked great and it felt great for me and the stuff that I wanted. But it seems like that's a new up and coming sight out there, and a lot of it people are actually flocking towards it. And I don't know. I'm curious to see. And actually, there was a couple years where I was using one of the Fast Eddies. Can't remember which one it was, but yeah. Obviously, it's all personal preference, though, too. So
yeah, they're all great, all good stuff. Everything. I mean, you can. It doesn't matter which piece of equipment you use. If you can be proficient with it, understand how it works, and have confidence in it, I think that's half the battle.
And not to go down this rabbit hole for too long, but I think you see so many reviews out there, and don't get me wrong, it's great to see people giving a review on a product, but everyone just seems like, all right, I gotta get the top gear products that's out there, what's being pushed right now, and this and that. And honestly, you could do perfectly fine with a trophy ridge type sight. You don't need to spend $1,000 or whatever and to be successful. Just be proficient and effective with what you have. That's all it takes.
Yep.
I've got buddies that are shooting I can't remember the name of the bow, but he's shooting a bow that's like 10 years old, and he hasn't upgraded anything with it, and he's shooting giant bucks, man. So
right.
Yeah. So when you're out there hunting, are you doing a lot of spot and stalk then?
Yeah, so Nevada's a really cool state. It has the most independent mountain ranges of any state in the country. Most of those mountain ranges run north to south, and our topography is prime for long range glassing. So we do a lot of travel in country, a lot of long range glassing, and then if it's like a early archery tag for velvet mule deer, end of August and September. It's all spot and stalk, getting close, perhaps sit in water, if you can find an isolated water source, that's got some good deer coming to it as an example. There's nothing wrong with, sticking up a ground blind and sit in water. Done that for pronghorn and deer. Elk is definitely a spot and stalk type hunt. We don't have a lot of big timber in Nevada, unless you're on the western side of the state. And so tree stand hunting is kind of out unless you're over there. That could work, certainly. Out here, a big tree for us is some pinyon juniper, and it might be maybe 20 feet tall and super brushy. So pretty difficult to tree stand or even saddle hunt.
Now, can you kind of take your same approach with the antelopes and the mule deer and the elk? Can you kind of take the same basic ground and pound and attack towards all three of them, or do you need to attack each one of them differently out there?
It depends on the time of the year and the season. The general approach is going to be the same most of the time. There are certain times of year, just like whitetail hunters do. I mean, targeting that November rut, we do the same thing. It's mule deer rut is also usually in November for us. So that's obviously a great time. Elk rut in September, so do pronghorn. And so different times of the year, those animals are going to be in different places. Early season, the deer are really up, they're really high. I mean, we have, 12,000 foot, 11,000 foot mountains in Nevada, and they could be at the top of the mountain goats. So all that kind of changes and ebbs and flows based off of the season and the tag you have, but the fundamentals are relatively the same.
Now, before we get too deep into things, what's your seasons like out there, so we have something to work off of?
Sure. So the state of Nevada is unique in that there's no over-the-counter tags in Nevada. Everything is through a draw or a lottery basis. And so you have to apply for the different animal species that you wish to pursue and the season types. So we have archery. All of the animals start with archery season, then muzzleloader, then a rifle season. Some then follow up certain areas and locations with a late archery or a late muzzleloader, and even in some cases late rifle. So it kind of just depends, but you do have to put in for those certain situations or certain seasons, for the animals that you're after. But like even our rifle season, it's any legal weapon. So it's a rifle season for most, but you could still go bow hunt or use your muzzleloader because it would still be classified as a legal weapon.
Huh. So you can hunt even though. So if you draw a tag for archery, are you still then the hunt in other seasons then, correct?
No, you got an archery tag.
Even if I have the archery tag, I can't hunt in the gun season.
That's correct.
Okay. Because I know like other states you can. So
Yep.
Like in Nevada, is it very strict out there? I mean, I'm not saying no state's strict with their laws, but you know what I mean?
Well, Nevada is there's way too many people applying for tags, both resident and non-resident, versus animals that are here to be pursued, right? And so with good management from the Nevada Department of Wildlife, I would say it's pretty strict in terms of tag allocations and how many people are in the field, which is the real beauty of the state of Nevada. The competition, as I said earlier, I grew up in Idaho, so I can buy the archery tag over the counter in Idaho as a resident. And I can go to a trailhead and there'll be 40 trucks at a trailhead, which sucks. That's grinding. Here there are areas that are more concentrated, I would say, but 80-something% of the state's public land. So take your pick. You don't have to run into anybody if you don't want to.
Wait, 80% is public?
That's right.
Holy crap.
Yep.
So is it tough for people to get? I've got so many questions right now. I don't know where to start. Let's just start off here. I don't even know. Yeah. So if there's so many people applying for a tag, how long does it take for a general person to get their tag? I'm assuming there's points then, and they got to build up points. Then what would generally be a point number?
Well, so Nevada is a point state. It's more like a bonus point state. Colorado is a preference point state. He who has the most points draws the tag. Nevada is not like that. Everybody has a chance to draw any given year. The chance of you to draw increases the more points you have, certainly. But it's not a max point game. So I know I had friends last year that drew this year. I mean, this upcoming season, non-resident friends that drew their first year putting in. I've got another friend that's been put in for 8 years and hasn't drawn a tag. So it just kind of depends. You don't know.
So it doesn't matter how many points you have. You can go whatever. It's just based off, all right, who's in, and all right, this name was drawn.
Yeah, it's kind of luck of the draw. Like I said, the more points you have, your odds increase.
Okay.
But it doesn't guarantee you a tag.
It kind of seems fair and unfair at the same time. Like
it kind of is fair and unfair at the
what
same
happens
time.
with the guy that has like I don't know, 30 points. I don't know, like a high number of points, and then you just can't get picked. And he's like, fuck, I want to hunt out there, but I'm going to die before.
Well, I would suggest if there's a person like that, in particular, and I'm thinking more, thinking about non-residents in that scenario. If you're a non-resident back in Michigan and you've been applying in Nevada for 30 years and you haven't drawn a tag in 30 years, I would suggest that you need to revisit your application strategy. You get 5 choices per species when you apply. And there are some people out there that I only want this tag. I only want to hunt elk in this area or mule deer or whatever it is. And I'm going to die on my bed until I get that tag, right? Well, if that's who you want to be, that's on you, right? I would suggest there's a different approach. And if you have that many points, you're not really wanting to come and hunt. You want a very specific opportunity, perhaps.
Right. I'm assuming there's a higher preference units that are like, quote unquote, guaranteed you'll see a higher class deer compared to others.
100%. Yeah, we definitely have more top tier units, just like any state. I can remember back when I was in Michigan, and Northwest Michigan wasn't known for monster bucks compared to Southern Michigan, right? So very, very similar. We have areas that are the same. Yeah.
But I think if you're that person that's just waiting and die hard on that one area, to me, I thought about doing like, I want that unit. I used Go Hunt at the time a couple years ago. Like, you're going to see this giant deer in this one. But I'm thinking to myself, first off, I've never been out the West. At this point, I just want to get out there and get my feet wet. I'll take anything at this point.
Right.
I think you have to look at each person like, have you done it before? Or is this going to be your first time? I think for me, like my first time going out there, I don't care. I just want to go and shoot. I think just shooting an elk, just to be successful shooting an elk out there, no matter what, experience years or not, I think that's just a freaking huge achievement.
Yep. I would agree with you. I would absolutely agree with you. And I guess kind of to your point, kind of that cold feet, and I've never been there before. I'm a huge advocate for Go Hunt. I've hunted most Western states. And I can tell you that I use Go Hunt a lot, exclusively in my research. And I've been to states that I've never been to before, using their services that they have, and it's set me up for success. Taking what I know, networking is huge, right? And hey, Brett, I'm coming to Michigan. I'm hunting deer in this general area. What do you know about it? I mean, that is the power of networking, the tools that we have today versus 20 years ago we're primed for success unlike we've never been before.
Right. And what's it like then for residents in Nevada to get a tag? Is it over the counter for you, or do you still have to get drawn?
Yeah, it's all an application, process. There are no over-the-counter tags in Nevada. The only thing we can, kind of guarantee hunt is like upland game, coyotes, stuff like that, mountain lion. But yeah, there's no big game tags that are over the counter. It's all a draw. And I did not draw a tag this year, but my wife and my son did. So at least we're hunting.
So you're not going to get an empty freezer of meat, because that was going to be my next question. What happens if you're a single person out there and like, crap, I can't go eat food now, basically? Right. What happens in those situations? You're just kind of SOL.
You are SOL, and I think that's a beautiful thing about a show like yours, Brett, is having the opportunity to talk about hunting differences throughout the United States, because I can remember when I was in Alaska, I could kill 5 deer. I think when I was in Michigan, I think I could kill 3 if I remember right.
Yeah, you can hunt 2 bucks in a doe,
and 2 or 3. Yeah, 2 bucks in a doe, right? Well, 2 bucks in a doe, I mean, that puts a pretty good amount of meat in your freezer for the year, and out here, especially in states that you can't get a tag guaranteed, many of us that take hunting pretty seriously, we're applying for 2, 3, 4, or 5 states a year for the hope that we're going to go somewhere to hunt.
Now, I'm assuming, honestly, just because of the makeup of an elk, you get 1 elk, I'm sure that can feed your family for a while.
Mm-hmm.
For like 3 people, 4 people for, I don't know, a good year maybe, if you ration.
Yeah, I would say on average, you're going to see, a good mature elk, you're going to see somewhere between 300 and 375 pounds of processed meat, depending on the size of the elk, its age, what are you adding with it for burger or something like that, perhaps. I think I've seen it one time right around 400 pounds, and it was a giant bodied bull, but I would say that 300, 350 is probably the more realistic number of actual take home meat for an elk.
Yeah. So if you were successful one year and you got more people in your family or friends that were also successful, you can spare 1 year in your home state then in Nevada of not getting one. You just better make sure that you get one the year after then.
Yeah, I sure hope so, right?
Man. And we were talking off air. I gotta make you say it now. You know exactly what you said.
Yeah, I do.
What's it like for Nevada hunting compared to the other ones?
Nevada is one of the best states in the West to hunt. It is the top 3 for sure. And depending on your personal, kind of agenda, what you're hunting, I think it's one of the best, if not the best, in a lot of aspects. I love hunting here. Like I said before, I've hunted most Western states, and there's just something different about Nevada. And it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. I tell all my friends, and I'll tell all your viewers, if you're a non-resident not applying for Nevada, you're a fool.
Now, what makes Nevada so different compared to all these other ones? Because I feel like at least if you go to Colorado, you can still get all the same the views, the mountains, and you can even get whitetail deer in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about Nevada that just has you sold?
I think it comes down a lot of it comes down to the management that the Nevada Department of Wildlife, they are managing this state for trophy quality. They're not, they're really strict in their the science and the biology of the animals, and it's always ebbing and flowing as far as like tag allocations for the next year, based off of a variety of things, drought, wildfire, you name it. And so because of that, the hunting experience is awesome. I've hunted Colorado on the flat tops, over the counter archery tag. That's probably the hardest archery hunt for elk in the United States. And yet it gets more attention than probably any state or any location because of how easy, well, maybe not next year because they're changing the law, but it's generally been easy to get a tag. You can just buy a tag and go. Well, it is hard hunting, man. Can you be successful? Sure. And is it going to be beautiful? Yeah. But when you come to Nevada, Idaho, Wyoming, especially some of the controlled hunts, most states that have the controlled hunts, the opportunity to see and have an experience that'll blow your mind is there. And that's what kind of fires me up about hunting Nevada is it's top tier. It's not like an over the counter tag. It's awesome.
So they basically are listening to you as hunters and taking what you're saying and what you're seeing out there.
Yeah.
And applying it to make sure you have a better hunting experience at the end of the day.
Yeah. And what that means at the cost of, even as a resident, that could mean you're not going to get a tag for a couple years. That could mean, well, it's like I was telling you before, my wife drew a bull tag last year here in Nevada. She killed a really nice 6-point bull. She can't even apply again for 10 years. She's out 10 years. Can't even put her name in the hat. So, and that's a long time. So we have to rely on some of these other states to apply on if she wants to continue hunting, bull elk. She drew a cow elk tag this year, so we have elk back to back, so we're all right. But so they're like I said, it's kind of it's an ebb and flow on what is important to you and your constituents, I guess, in the state. And I think our wildlife managers do a dang good job with providing the most opportunity for the highest quality of animals that you could possibly imagine.
So now waiting 10 years, is that for a buck and then a cow? Or is that just
for a bull? In general? Yeah, so it's elk. Yeah. So there's some regulations. So if you draw a bull tag in Nevada, you cannot apply for 10 years. If you draw a pronghorn tag, a buck pronghorn tag, here they call it longer than ears. It's a 3-year wait time or penalty. It's not really a penalty, but a wait time, right? So you can't throw your name in the hat for 3 years. So on the 4th year, you can apply again. And they do that to distribute, so you and I draw on opposite ears. We have a higher probability of drawing because there's the people that were drawn and tagged this year are out for the next couple of years. So everybody else can get a chance, right?
Well, that's smart. And what's up with the time frame? And is that only mainly for residents, or is that for also non-residents as well?
It applies across the board to residents and non-residents. And I don't know for sure the rationale behind it, but I would suspect it has to do with the average numbers of, the deer and elk herds and pronghorn herds. They know, we want to keep this a sustainable resource because it is. And, it's a renewable resource, hunting, and with proper management, we can keep those numbers at or above management levels in perpetuity. And I would suspect that that's probably their goal. So, which makes sense.
Well, I mean, you guys has it been that way for like ever, or is that something new that they've kind of been practicing with?
Well, I mean, I've only been here for about 8 years. And I know back in the day, they had over-the-counter tags. If you were a resident, you could just go buy an archery, deer tag. But it's interesting because I know you spoke to, early on in the podcast that, hunter numbers are declining. We're not seeing that out west, and every state out west would share in that sentiment, because every state, especially for non-resident hunters, has recently, just about every state has had major overhaul in how non-resident hunters either apply for or buy non-resident hunting tags licenses in those states. Most recently, the most recent news is Colorado going to a completely, draw system for over-the-counter non-resident tags. So that's going away. Idaho did something very similar. So, back in the day when I was in Michigan, and, I would drive out every year to go elk hunting out in Idaho. I would just drive to Idaho, buy my elk tag over the counter at the local sporting goods store, and go elk hunting. You can't do that anymore. It's gone because the competition for those tags has increased significantly.
Well, I know here in Michigan, and I think you see it kind of in other states as well, but it sounds like out west, you're not seeing it as much. I know here in Michigan for sure, you're seeing the numbers decline at a fast rate. If you're not seeing the numbers decline that like out there out west, would you contribute it mainly towards the new day and age of out west hunting is now more popular, more of a go-to social media thing, and people are just flocking to go hunt out elk, antelope, mule deer? It seems like it's more popular these days thanks to social media and just more known about compared to back in the day. Is that, or is there a different reason why?
I think that's the sole reason why. I mean, you think about it. If you're, Brett in Michigan, and you were raised in Michigan hunting whitetail and turkeys and all the fun stuff that's in Michigan, and you've dreamt of hunting elk out in Nevada all your life, or out west somewhere, in a matter of a couple of weeks between Go Hunt and YouTube and all these big channels with huge followership, I mean, you can learn how to be a pretty successful Western big game hunter in a few weeks, and you can really show up with some really great skill set, although you haven't personally done it, but you've observed and you watched other people through tips, tactics, videos, actual hunts, you name it. I mean, there's how-to. I mean, you can learn how to blow an elk call in a half an hour by watching a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, I think you could probably say the same thing for going out, and hunting public land, Northwest Michigan whitetail. And there's somebody that has a channel for that. I'm sure of it. But I do think that social media is the number one contributing factor to the popularity and exposure, to hunting out west, certainly.
Yeah, because it just seems like growing up as a kid, I just was so intrigued of hunting and whitetail deer, and it not knowing a whole bunch more. Like, all right, you can go out west, hunt and hunt elk, and just kind of like it's like this foreign thing out there out west. But I think once you start seeing all these posts of people shooting these giant elk and these amazing pronghorns and mule deer, and you throw it on top of, all right, we've kind of basically, I think if you look at hunting social media and hunting TV, we started with whitetail deer, and now it's just, in my opinion, just kind of like, I don't want to use the phrase dead, but we've over consumed with whitetail deer of back in the day of VHS videotapes of hunting them, and now it seems like the new trend is going out west type hunting.
Oh yeah, I mean, when we were kids, right? I mean, it was monster bucks and the Drury brothers and Realtree, and I mean that's kind of what it was. And which is, I mean, I love hunting whitetail too. Love it. Absolutely love hunting whitetail. It's exhilarating. But you're right. I mean, I think that there's just as much, if not more, Western themed, groups, teams, channels, whatever you want to call them, shows that are exposing these awesome opportunities. And I hope that people are taking advantage of those opportunities, because it's all of ours, right? As public landowners and users and American citizens, it's a privilege for us to go. And if you want to go to Alaska, go to Alaska. If you want to hunt Michigan or Nevada, go. Plan for it. And let's do it, right? And I do love the fact that it is generating some level of unification in some ways, and maybe even some other, there's another argument to be made perhaps, but I think it is, from an exposure perspective, it's so much easier for the average person in Tennessee or wherever to say, I'm going to go out west and I'm going to research it hard, and this is how I'm going to do it. And which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And just the technology we have these days to basically not even take one. So for instance, me, I haven't hunted outside of Michigan just because I just haven't. To have all the information basically right there at your fingertips, and you don't even need to leave your couch or your chair.
Right.
And you can learn all this information. And then you're like, all right, honey, I'm taking 2 weeks off. I'm going to see you out in Nevada in 2 weeks later. And you are like, it just seems like you can go out there and be like, I'm going to be successful. I'm not worried about one little bit. The main thing I'm worried about is just make sure I'm conditioning correctly. Yeah.
Which is I would argue probably the biggest difference between hunting out west and hunting the Midwest is that physical conditioning.
Yeah. Because obviously here, Midwest, you're just kind of, you can do some ground and stalk type hunting, but you're just mainly walking, going up some hills here and there, or sitting your fat ass in a tree stand. Yep. You go out west, you better make sure that you got your laces tied up correctly and you're in shape.
That's right.
That just seems like that terrain up there it just seems like it's a whole nother beast that kind of leads into my next question of, for someone, just use me for an example, that's never been out west, and I'm starting to prepare to go out west hunting. What should I start doing now? How should I start training, preparing? What should I start doing?
Well, I would definitely start with your physical fitness. I absolutely believe that if you're not prepared physically, that you're going to get eaten up and spit out, and it's going to be a miserable hunt. And it's bigger than just your lungs. It's getting your legs strong, your feet acclimated to a lot of pressure and hot spots. Be uncomfortable. Put your hunt. Get a good hunting pack. Walk around in your boots. Around the block or wherever you live. And then start adding weight to it. When I do a backcountry trip with some buddies, I usually stay around 50, 55 pounds of weight in my pack, and we back in for 3 or 4 or 5 day, like a spike camp type hunt. That's a lot of weight when you're in the mountains. If you're at 9,000, 10,000 feet going up and down, mountains not on a trail. And I mean, that'll really hurt you if you're not prepared for it. So I would absolutely advocate for that. I would have a good way to communicate. I use like a little mini inReach, having some way to reach out for help if you need it, whether that's just packing something out or, heaven forbid you have an emergency situation. I think so many people overlook that. And I think now there's places you can just rent them. If you're going on a hunt for 2 weeks, you can rent them. It's cheap. That's cheap insurance. Be smart, plan ahead. And then I would really think about, the animal you're going to pursue, and do some research and homework to if you're archery hunting mule deer in late August, be prepared for, windy conditions pretty much in every Western state that time of year. Be prepared to shoot, 50, 60 yards, maybe further if your skill set allows it, and you feel that that's an ethical thing for you to do. Know your maximum effective range is probably the best way to put that. But those are the few things that I would do right out of the gate. If I knew I was coming to northern Nevada or southern Idaho, or I would start reaching out to people and networking and say, hey, friend, I know you don't know me from Adam. I've got this tag. Are you willing to talk a little bit about it? Do you know anything about this area? I have people do that to me often, and I love talking to people and networking because I believe we're all brothers and sisters in this together. So I am a firm believer of what goes around comes around, and I've lived it. I've seen it. I helped Brett out, and then all of a sudden, build a friendship, and Brett helps Jearred out in the future, with something I don't know about, right? And I think when you put all those things together, it generates an opportunity and a recipe for success.
For those individuals that are going out there with the bow, and I feel like you should have some comfortability of shooting, let's just say 60 yards, because I feel like you going out west, that's going to be kind of a main majority of your time of your hunt. For someone that doesn't feel comfortable shooting that far, and let's just say 40 yards, what would you tell that person that only feels comfortable shooting at that distance?
I would tell them to shoot more. Maybe get a coach, join your local archery league and your club, do as many 3D shoots. I know TAC has blown up. I know they had one, in Michigan, even, and Pennsylvania. So these TAC shoots are they are really kind of more of a Western themed archery shoot. And I know even the ones in the Midwest, I mean, they're pushing it out there 100, 120 yards on some of these targets. So I would get involved, maybe even change up your equipment, go to lighter arrows, perhaps, to get comfortable, gain some velocity and teach yourself and train through good form that you can actually make these shots. I train all the time, 100, 120 yards. I've never shot at an animal that far, not even close. I think the furthest animal I've ever shot was right at 60 yards, and it's that pronghorn that's on the wall. And that was the farthest shot I've ever taken, and I felt great about it when I did it, and I pinwheeled him. So, but I think that's what I would do. If you're not comfortable, I would surround yourself with people that are, and then practice, because it's not hard if you do it and have good form and you do it through repetition. You'd be surprised at what you can actually do with some good training.
I know. So I'm a certified archery instructor and teacher and technician, and my training, my practicing for archery is, I say it before, is April to about July, August, roughly in that ballpark. I just shoot at a morel target that just has a circle in it, and that entire time I'm going out to different distances, but it's mainly just pulling back and just doing it very slowly and just correcting my form, making sure everything looks good. Heck, sometimes I have my wife come out there and videotape me and take pictures from behind and making sure that everything's lined up correctly from different sides of me as well. And that's all I'm doing, is just working on form. And then once August, September comes around, I'll throw my 3D target up. And then at that point, I'm basically just, all right, I have my form down. Now I want my eye to get the eye picture corrected into looking at an actual somewhat real life target.
Agreed.
And I've been doing that for a while, and it's actually been very successful. And one thing my dad taught me at a very young age was he started to do with me is, all right, you're going to do 20 jumping jacks and get down and give me 20 push-ups. And then as soon as you stand up, you got to run over to your bow that's 10 yards away, run back over here. You have 5 quick breaths to deep in, and then you have to shoot your bow, like just to get your heartbeat pounding to somewhat simulate that type of experience that's out in the woods.
Yeah, I agree. I've done the same thing. I do the same thing with my son when I was teaching him how to shoot his rifle, get his heart rate up, and because buck fever is a real thing, and it should be, and we hope we never lose that that feeling, certainly. But if you can control it right and train through it, it does mitigate it. Yeah,
and man, I can't wait to get my kid out there, and I feel like my daughter is just gonna be a brutal killer out there. She's just, the way she is right now as a 4-year-old, man, I'm scared. I don't know, man. I feel like she's gonna go out there and like, that's mine, he's dead.
Yeah, I love it.
No, I think if anything, side note real quick, I think she's gonna become more of a fisherman, and my son's gonna pick up more of the archery hunting more side of it all, because we have a fish now in the house that I wish they would die already, but she loves fish. So I think that's the avenue that they might be going down towards personally.
Cool.
We were talking about the regulations, how Nevada is like compared to none other. Is there laws or regulations out there that you would like to see changed or modified, or something that you might not agree with, or would you want to have more of an explanation behind of why they're doing it this way?
The only thing that I would suggest perhaps is, and this is pretty much about mule deer. So anybody that knows about mule deer out west, they're in severe decline. All the Western states, mule deer herds are way below historic levels. And so when I think about, strategies and conservation strategies to protect those herds, a lot of states, the first thing they do is reduce tags, and that's appropriate. Certainly that's appropriate. And yet my argument would be that they still allow the harvest of does. And I disagree with that. I mean, if your herds are plummeting, there should be no doe tags, right? Because that's who's carrying and making babies, right? Nevada has taken a pretty strong stance on that over the last couple of years, and has mitigated that by Xing most, if not all, the doe tags. Youth hunters, even in the state, used to be able to do either sex, and in most of the state now, that's off limits. It's buck only. So I think that the recognition and the science is there. They know, when they do their herd counts and they're checking everything out, with their animals and doing flight surveys or whatever they're doing, they can see it and they're making the adjustments, which I applaud them for. It's a difficult conversation, especially for me as a father. I mean, I want to give my kids and all kids every opportunity over me to get out there in the field and to hunt. And if that means shooting a mule deer doe, so be it. But there also is a time where we have to draw a line and be realistic about the preservation and sustainability of our herds, as an example. And so that would have been my complaint. They're taking big steps here in Nevada to correct that. And I really do appreciate it on a personal level, because I'm sure for many it was very unpopular, but it was the right thing to do.
So it sounds like, though, it's a tough thing to swallow right at the beginning, but in the long run, they're doing their best to make sure it's going to be better for future generations to come.
That's right.
Man, it sounds like your state and really cares about you guys, and I'm kind of jealous. So yeah, but
they do a pretty good job, right? I mean, nothing's ever perfect, and it never will be. But I honestly think they're doing a pretty darn good job, overall.
Do you have a lot of problems with wolves out there? Because I know in Idaho there's problems with them.
Not really. There was a recent sighting, I believe it was either 3 or 5 wolves in northern Nevada, right below the Idaho border. The pictures are pretty conclusive, but then, the statement released was that they were coyotes. And I've lived here a long time, and I have not seen several black coyotes together. So I don't buy it. There's been a few around, but no, the impacts have not been, like my home state of Idaho, which is just psychopathic crazy of what's happened in Idaho. We do have some cool things that have happened because of that. The wolf reintroduction in the mid-90s in Idaho is the moose population, or the moose in Idaho, have pushed south to Nevada. And so, matter of fact, at such a level, we actually have our very first moose season ever in the history this hunting season. 2 bull moose tags in the state, and it's really cool that a 12 or a 13-year-old kid got one of them. So that's pretty neat.
Wow. So you don't think of moose in Nevada?
I know. And I've seen a giant last year. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. On my wife's, probably 10 minutes before she shot her big bull elk last year, we seen a giant bull moose. He's beautiful. So they're here, and they're, I feel like I remember the numbers, somewhere about 140 of them in the state. And so they determined that they could go ahead and issue 2 tags and, not really have too much of an impact on the population. And so first hunt ever for moose in Nevada this year.
So they're only giving out 2, not That's 2 it. To each in the person. It's 2 total tags. And you said a 12 or 13-year-old kid was one of them?
That's right.
That lucky kid, man. I swear.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about that story if you get successful with it.
Well, he'll be successful, and I have to applaud some of our local guides and outfitters. Several of them have reached out to both the people who won or drew those tags and said, "Hey, we want to be a part of this. This is the first time it's ever happened. How can we help?" Which I think is pretty rad that they would do that.
No kidding. So
Yeah.
they're helping out, like teaching them like where to go. Not say teaching, but like, all right, we're gonna do everything we can to make sure that you get this deer. I mean,
Yeah.
this moose.
This moose, right? And and I get it too. It's a business transaction in terms of if I don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure this is a free service. They want to be a part of it. Who doesn't want to be the first guide in the state to be there when the first moose is shot? Of course, you want that publicity, right?
Right.
So that's what I mean by it's a business transaction, and I totally get it. It makes sense. But they still want to be there to help these people be successful because this is the first time in history it's ever happened. We've never had a tag for moose in the state. And so I think it's rad that they're doing it. And I mean, hats off to them. Even if there is some rewards to be reaped in the future, perhaps good for you. Right. So I think it's a win for everybody.
Is it something that they're thinking about doing for years after year, or is it just kind of like play it year by year?
I think they'll probably play it year by year, but I do think it's safe. I read the report that the Fish and Wildlife Department released about the moose population and the growth trends, and they're growing pretty well. A lot of the cows are having 2 calves a year, and so I would say if you fast forward 10 years from now, I think it's realistic to think that if cows are having 2 calves or 2 calves a year, a bull and a calf, or bull and a cow calf, then I think it's realistic. We could be pushing 1,000 animals in 10 years. And if they average 2 tags a year, we're not going to hurt that population. It should be a sustainable resource and still grow. So I would suspect they'll keep going unless something drastic happens, perhaps. But we all hope, because now we all have, every one of us that didn't draw it has 1 point leading into next year. So
right.
Yeah.
Still, that is sweet. Moose hunting in Nevada. I can't believe that.
Yep.
Anyways, Jared, so we're getting here to the wrap up into the show here. I want to ask, was there a story or a topic that you didn't get to share or that you want to share? And it's your spotlight. So if you want to share a story, go right ahead. Or was there a topic that we didn't get to talk about tonight?
I have plenty of stories, and I could eat another hour of everybody's time doing so. But I guess if there was one thing I would like to leave everybody with, and I love, Brett, that you're doing this show, and you're talking about each state individually and talking to, people in each state. What I would like to leave everybody with is, man, lead with kindness, lean on your brothers and sisters in the outdoor industry, your friends, your network, whomever they may be. Don't be afraid to reach out to other people. Most, I would argue, are like-minded and would love to pick up a phone and have a conversation with you about hunting in Western state or vice versa. And I think that now more than ever, and I do know, from a nationwide perspective, hunter numbers are declining. That is a fact. And I read the reports, but it's up to us to unify as a collective group and body, lean on each other, introduce new people to what we love so much. It's not about killing the animals necessarily, right? It's the bigger picture, the conservation, sustainability, the experiences, the first time the sun kisses your face in the morning, you name it, whatever floats your boat. But together, if we can come together and keep a wedge out, between, I'm a bow hunter and you're a rifle hunter, I shoot a crossbow and you this, or bait or no bait, like, man, we're all on the same team. Let's just love each other and go kick ass and, shoot some stuff and fill our freezers,
Right. Yeah. I think we as hunters, at the end of the day, you see another person with camo on or a Matthews archery or some type of hat, or just something that, like, that's a hunter.
Right.
We're the first ones to be like, I know I'm going to connect with that person right away. And we start talking about stories, but at the same time, we're also our worst enemies, where I'm a diehard bow hunter guy, and you meet another guy that's just diehard gun guy, and we kind of pick each other apart at the same time. So, but like you said, that's a great point, where who cares? At the end of the day, we're outside. Go, as long as you're doing it ethically, you're following the law, and you're out there having fun. Who gives a shit what the score of the deer was or how you did it? We can all have our personal opinions, and we can We can sit around a bonfire and talk about it, but we're not going to hate each other for it.
That's right.
Just go outside and enjoy being out in the woods and be successful and share meat. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
That's right. Yeah, that would be the, man, if we could all just look at it through that lens, I think we'd be in a much better place.
Right. Well, hopefully we can get there one day, and hopefully with the show we can get there too. But Jearred, again, I just want to say thank you again for taking time out of your day to come on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah,
if people want to reach out to you and get to ask you more questions about Nevada hunting or out west hunting, is there a way they can reach out to you?
Yeah, I think your link had my socials, so check it out. You can find him on Instagram at Jearred.Foruria, YouTube, you name it. We try to put a little content out just for fun, and my son and I. So I'm always willing to talk shop and talk hunting, and even if it's I don't know where to start, can you help me out? I'm all ears. Well,
Jearred, thank you so much, man. I definitely be putting a little ringer in your ear, because I definitely, like I said, I want to get out there and hunt. And if I can go out there and hunt, Nevada's gonna be my first date, I'm texting you, man. So again, thanks, brother. I really appreciate it, and we'll definitely stay in touch, my man.
All right, man.
See ya.
See ya.
Oh man, what a great guy, guys. And like I said, moose hunting out in Nevada, I don't know. That's crazy. I can't believe that. First to have it do it. I'm anxious to see how that continues to go out there in Nevada. So, man, but again, Jearred, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for everyone that's tuned in for tonight. I greatly appreciate it. I've learned a lot more about Nevada. Man, if I'm going to go out hunt out west, Nevada's going to be probably the first state that's going to be doing it. If he's putting that much emphasis on Nevada hunting, not just because he's there, but because he's hunted everywhere else as well, I got to start taking a second look at Nevada. Anyways, that's going to conclude another episode of the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. I greatly appreciate it again for everyone that's tuned in for tonight. Like I said, make sure to check us out on our social media platforms. If you want to be a guest on the show, I'll never tell anybody no. We'll figure something out and get you as a guest on the show. You don't have to be from the state that we're covering. If you are from, I don't know, Washington, Oregon, wherever you're from, and you want to come on the show, we'll make something happen for you as well. And if you want me to come on your show and do a recorded podcast, whatever, feel free to reach out to myself as well. Like I said, social media, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, or you can send me an email at brettbovin@whitetailadvantage.com. And let me see where I have notes here. So like I said, make sure to tune in for tomorrow's show. We're going to be having a guest from Michigan as well. We won't say who they are, so we'll leave that as a little bit of a guessing game. So with that being said, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see everyone next time. Make sure you put your quarter in the slot machine.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.